Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into the Global Domain Report 2025. We're basically going to give you the highlights, the key takeaways, so you're up to speed on what's happening in the domain world. We've sifted through it all for you.
Exactly. Think of this as your quick guide. We'll hit the big themes, AI's growing role, Web3 domains popping up, security getting tighter with things like NIS2, and of course, how the different types of domains, the classics versus the new ones, are actually doing in the market.
Right. So our mission here is pretty simple. Give you a really clear picture of the important shifts in domain names for 2025, all based on the report's data and expert views. Okay, let's get into it. What's the general vibe in the domain industry right now? What's the report saying?
Well, the overall feeling is one of, pretty dynamic change. There's a lot of evolution happening, technology, regulations. They're really pushing things. But, and this is important, the traditional domain endings, they're still the bedrock, a really solid foundation.
Okay, so change, but the foundation's still strong. Good to know. But I thought the report mentioned a bit of a dip in total registrations for 2024.
Yeah, that's right. A slight slowdown overall last year. And if you break it down, the legacy gTLDs, your .coms, your .nets, they actually decreased a bit.
Oh, why is that?
It seems like market saturation is a big part of it, just fewer great names available, and people are looking more towards the newer options too.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. Harder to find that perfect.com. So who's picking up the slack then? Are these new endings catching on?
Oh, absolutely. The new gTLDs, they showed a really remarkable growth, 15.9% year over year in 2024.
15.9, wow.
Yeah, they're really seen as like a solution to that saturation problem in legacy TLDs and even some country codes. They're expanding the whole namespace, basically.
Expanding the options. Got it. And what about the country-specific ones, the ccTLDs? How did they do?
They saw a slight increase, just a small uptick. It suggests that businesses targeting specific regions, local markets, they're still really focused on having that country-specific identity online.
Okay, so big picture, kind of a reshuffle. Old guard's still vital. New players gaining serious ground. Local focus remains important. Let's zoom in on the giant.com. Still king.
Oh, without a doubt. Still totally dominant. We're talking 156.3 million registrations. That's like 43% of the whole market. Still the go-to for global reach for so many.
Huge numbers.
What? Yeah.
You hesitated there. What's the but?
Right, yeah. The but is, despite that dominance, .com actually saw a 2.1% decrease year over year, and its renewal rate, 73.8%. So it kind of backs up that idea that while it's massive, its growth phase might be plateauing.
Interesting, plateauing.
Yeah. And meanwhile, other legacy gTLDs actually grew modestly, about 3.1%.
Okay, so even within the old guard, there's some shifting. What about the value of a .com? Are they getting pricier?
Yes. The trend for the median price, what a typical .com sells for, is definitely upwards. The report doesn't give the exact 2024 median, but it confirms that upward trend, still seen as increasingly valuable.
And this connects to the wholesale price too, right, from VeriSign?
Exactly. VeriSign, who runs .com, they've been steadily bumping up the wholesale price they charge registrars. And the prediction is that continues. It's expected to hit $10.98 by 2027. It was $10.26 in 2024.
Okay, so the base cost is rising. That'll trickle down, presumably.
You'd expect so, yeah. It affects the retail price you eventually pay.
So even if growth slows, value and cost are up. Interesting dynamic. Who's registering all these .coms? Which countries?
Well, the U.S. is way out in front, 90.5 million.
Wow.
Then China with 12.9 million. And then, kind of a surprise, Iceland is pretty high up.
Iceland? Really? Why?
It's likely because of WHOIS privacy services based there. People use them to mask their actual registration details, like a privacy shield.
Ah, I see. Privacy is a big driver. Who else is big?
Canada's up there with 9.5 million and the UK with 4.1 million. Those round out the top 5.
Got it. And the length of these domains? Mostly short and snappy.
Actually, the biggest chunk, almost half, 48.8%, are between 7 and 14 characters. The next biggest group is 14 to 21 characters. That's about 32.7%. So mid-length is still the most common.
Okay, not all super short then. So .com, still the champ, but facing, real competition. Let's talk about those competitors, the new gTLDs. Who's leading that charge?
Right, the rising stars. Top 3 by registration numbers are .xyz, that's 3.9 million.
Okay.
Then .online at 3.5 million. And shop at 3.3 million.
XYZ, online shop. Got it.
And what's interesting is those same 3 .online, .xyz, and shop were also the most traded new gTLDs in the aftermarket last year, by volume.
So people aren't just registering them, they're actively buying and selling them too. That suggests perceived value, right?
Definitely. They're seen as assets. And we mentioned that overall, 15.9% growth for new gTLDs.
Yeah, impressive number.
But some individual ones just exploded. Like .feedback, it grew 1,412% in 2025.
Whoa, 1,400%. For .feedback, didn't that launch ages ago?
Yeah, back in 2016. Seemed it suddenly found its moment, you know.
Talk about a late bloomer. Any other big growers?
Oh, yeah. Mostly other new ones. You had .loan up 902%, .pink at 482%, .olo at 425%. Also, the TypeScript one up 440%, and .christmas saw a big seasonal jump, 538%.
Okay.
And, interestingly, a ccTLD.sx for St. Martin also surged, up 529%.
Huh. So mostly new gTLDs, but .sx too. And what about those huge numbers from InternetX, .lat, and .beauty?
Right, the 2024 data showed .lat grew like 7,500% and .beauty over 3,000%. But the report thinks that was probably skewed by big domain migrations onto their platform, maybe not typical organic growth.
Oh, okay. Context matters. What about the geographic ones, the gTLDs?
Well, Asia technically sponsored, but geographically focused is still doing great. 31% annual growth. Pretty solid.
Yeah.
And ALET, despite the migration question, jumped to second in geos with 41% growth reported. European ones are generally strong, but with more, let's say, modest growth. And the top city TLD in 2024 was Berlin.
Berlin. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Location, location, location. Still applies online. And there's more coming. Another round of new gTLDs.
Yes. Big news. The next application window is expected April 2026, runs April to July, results maybe August 2026.
First chance in over a decade, right?
Exactly. It's a huge deal. The aim is, more diversity, more competition, more utility. They'll also support longer names before the dot and different scripts like Arabic or Chinese characters, more global access.
Sounds like it could really shake things up again. Okay, let's shift to the country codes, ccTLDs. Overall, slight growth. But how important are they really?
Well, here's a stat for you. In the top 10 most popular TLDs overall, 8 are ccTLDs. Only 2 are gTLDs.
8 out of 10. Seriously, I wouldn't have guessed that high.
Yeah, it really shows how vital that country identity still is.
So who are the biggest by sheer volume?
Okay, top is .tk for Tokelau at 27.5 million.
.tk is always massive. Wasn't that free for a long time?
Exactly. That's a big factor. .tk and some African ccTLDs had 0 registration fees, which obviously inflated numbers. Most have switched to paid models now, though, so we'll see how that affects things going forward.
Right. Who else is big?
After .tk, you've got .cn for China at 19.7 million, .de for Germany, 17.7 million, .uk, 10.3 million, and .ga for Gabon at 9.7 million.
Lots of European ones in there.
Yep. Europe's well represented. About 36% of the top 20 ccTLDs are European.
And it's not just registration numbers, right? You said they're gaining value in the aftermarket.
Absolutely. Gaining popularity and value. Why? Well, think about local SEO. Having a .de domain helps you rank better in Germany. And branding. It builds trust with local customers if you have their country's domain ending. It signals you're focused on their market.
That makes total sense. If I'm shopping online in the UK, I might trust a .co.uk site more.
Precisely. And the top ccTLDs treated in the aftermarket in 2024 reflect that. .de, .co.uk, .co were all strong.
What about .io? That used to be hot.
Yeah, interestingly, .io dropped out of the top 10 public sales. The report suggests maybe some uncertainty about its administration. Something to watch.
Okay.
But AI, still very popular, riding that whole AI wave, obviously.
Right. Okay, super important topic. Next. Domain security. It feels like this is getting more attention.
It absolutely has to. Protecting your domain and the services running on it from hackers and, malicious stuff, it's crucial. The report looked at how widely different security measures are actually being used.
And what's the verdict? Who's doing best?
ccTLDs actually showed the highest percentage of security measures employed.
Why them specifically?
Probably stricter national regulations. Many countries have specific rules for their domain registries that include security mandates.
Okay, regulation driving adoption. What about specific tech, like SSL/TLS encryption? The padlock thing.
That's pretty widespread now. Over 86% adoption for top gTLDs and ccTLDs. It's driven by the need for secure transactions, obviously, but also browsers pushing for it, flagging sites as not secure if they don't have it.
Yeah, nobody wants that warning. So encryption is common. What about DNS-SEC? That's supposed to be important too, right?
It is, yeah. It helps prevent certain kinds of DNS hijacking. But adoption, still pretty low overall.
Really? How low?
Around 13% for gTLDs, maybe 34% for ccTLDs on average.
Why so low? Is it hard to implement?
It can be more complex to set up, yeah, and maybe just a lack of awareness or perceived immediate need for some site owners, though some ccTLDs are way ahead. .dk in Denmark, .ec in Sweden, .nu for new, they're all over 70% adoption. Impressive.
Wow. Okay. So it can be done.
And for gTLDs, .page is a standout at about 37.5%.
Still, lots of room for improvement there. What about email security?
SPF.
SPF usage is definitely rising, around 42% for gTLDs, but much higher for ccTLDs, about 70%. People are getting more clued into email security, preventing spoofing and phishing. That's likely driving it.
Which ones lead there?
Top ccTLDs were .ws, Samoa, and ICHE Kenya, surprisingly high. For gTLDs, wedding was highest.
Wedding. Okay. Email security is vital. Did the report say how many people actually had security problems? Yeah, and it's a bit worrying. Almost 30% of survey respondents said they'd had some kind of domain-related security issue in the past year.
Nearly a third. Wow. That really underlines the need for this stuff.
It really does.
And then there's this NIS2 directive in Europe.
Yeah.
That sounds like a big deal for the industry.
It is, yeah. NIS2, it's an EU regulation aimed at boosting cybersecurity across the board. It directly affects registries, registrars, resellers, even privacy proxy services and DNS providers, basically key parts of the domain infrastructure.
What does it require them to do?
Key things include maintaining accurate registration data, making non-personal data public, handling disclosure requests properly, and publishing clear policies. It's about accountability and better security practices.
Sounds like a lot of new responsibilities. How's the rollout going?
Well, the directive was official in Jan 2023, and countries had until October 2024 to write it into their own laws. But the report notes that only a few had actually met that deadline. So there's some uncertainty there. Patchy implementation, maybe.
And are people in the industry even aware of it?
That was another concerning finding. Almost half the survey participants not familiar with NIS2 at all.
Half, given how much it affects.
Yeah, big awareness gap. And the main worries for those who are aware are compliance costs and the technical hurdles involved in making the required changes.
Okay, so NIS2, significant but facing awareness and implementation challenges.
Okay.
Let's shift to the really future-facing stuff. AI's impact.
Oh yeah, AI is definitely weaving its way into the domain world. It's influencing search, valuation, management, security, lots of areas.
And the .ai domain itself. That's exploded, hasn't
That's
it?
a completely, nearly 400% growth in registrations over 5 years, just riding the AI wave becoming mainstream. And the value, average sale price for a .ai domain in 2024 was over $6,500.
Wowzers.
And the median price is also pretty high, suggesting it's not just a few crazy sales. There's real sustainable demand.
Is it just AI companies buying them, or are others jumping in too, like to look cool?
That's a great point. We are seeing adoption beyond pure AI firms. Other tech companies, even businesses in different sectors, they're using .ai to signal, innovation, being tech forward. It's almost like a branding statement now.
A badge of relevance.
Oh.
Okay. How else is AI changing things?
It's making domain search smarter, helping find better, more creative names. The expectation is AI will lead to much smarter portfolio management tools too. And better security, as we touched on. AI is crucial for spotting patterns related to DNS abuse or phishing attempts.
Mm-hmm.
There's even talk of AI helping integrate Web3 domains more smoothly with the traditional DNS. Plus, AI tools are great for brainstorming those descriptive domain names.
So it's really becoming embedded, helping find, manage, protect. What about those Web3 domains themselves? The blockchain ones?
Right, the decentralized frontier. That operate differently. On
Yeah.
blockchains linked to crypto wallets, not the traditional DNS hierarchy. A key difference often is no annual renewal fees for many of them. You buy it once.
Okay. How many are there they taken off?
The report pegs it around 10 million registrations currently. Adoption seems pretty tied to crypto wallet usage. The thinking is, as blockchain gets more integrated into the regular internet, Web3 domain use will accelerate. And remember that 10 million is likely cumulative since many don't expire.
Got it. Which are the most popular Web3 endings?
Top ones right now seem to be .f, .nft, .crypto, .wallet, and .x.
Okay. The report mentioned collision. What's that about? Sounds messy.
It can be, yeah. Imagine if your name could exist as a .eth domain and as a .crypto domain controlled by different people. That's basically collision. The same name existing across different blockchain namespaces creates confusion, potential conflicts over ownership.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem. How aware is the mainstream domain industry of Web3 domains?
Awareness is definitely growing. Most survey folks were somewhat or very familiar. But actual ownership, or even considering getting one, still pretty early days. Only about 32% are in that camp.
So on the radar, but not mainstream adoption yet.
Right. And there's still kind of a mixed view on how truly important blockchain will ultimately be for domains overall.
Okay, interesting times ahead there. Let's wrap up with the aftermarket buying and selling existing domains. How was 2024?
Pretty stable, actually. A slight uptick in sales numbers and volume on platforms like Sato. Steady as she goes, mostly.
And what's selling? Still all about .com.
.com definitely dominates the really high-value sales, the big-ticket items. No surprise there. But .org had a real comeback year, both in value and sales volume. It actually overtook .net in volume terms.
Oh, interesting. .org revival?
Yeah, and ccTLDs, as we discussed, getting more popular and pricier in the aftermarket, too. New gTLDs like .online, .xyz, .shop, lots of trading volume, but generally at more moderate prices.
Any standout new gTLDs in the aftermarket?
.tech and .life seem to emerge as sort of premium options among the newer TLDs, fetching better prices.
Okay. And prices overall? Average, median, what's the trend?
Average price for .com sales on Sato went up. Same for .ai. Looking at median prices, which maybe gives a better feel for the typical sale .com, .eu, .ch, and .co.uk, all saw increases.
So, mostly up. But wasn't .org's median down? Despite the sales volume.
That's right, yeah. A bit counterintuitive, lots of activity, but the typical sale price for .org actually dipped slightly, even with some high-value sales happening.
Complex market.
Yeah.
What about Cito's partner network, Cito MLS? Is that a big channel?
Huge. It accounts for 45% of Cito's total sales. The median sale value there is $650, average $1,600. So lots of solid, valuable domains changing hands through that network.
And how are people selling? Fixed price still the main way?
Yep. Fixed price listings accounted for 69% of sales, still the most popular, but auctions and using brokers are gaining traction. People seem more willing to explore different sale methods now.
What kind of names get the top dollar? Short ones?
Yeah.
Keyword-rich ones?
Generally, yeah. Descriptive .coms, maybe 5 to 8 characters, tend to hit the highest prices. And 3-letter .coms, especially all letters, LLL.com, are always super sought after, very valuable.
And keywords. What was hot in 2024?
Mirrored the headlines, really. AI, crypto, gambling, cloud, Dubai, beauty, jobs, that kind of stuff.
Makes sense.
And for 2025.
Some more trends expected. Tech, innovation, finance, crypto. Those themes will likely drive keyword demand.
So the outlook for the aftermarket in 25, still strong demand.
Yeah, forecast is for sustained demand for the really premium stuff, top.com's desirable ccTLDs, alternative TLDs like .ai, .tech probably keep gaining ground. And maybe more auctions for the lower to mid-price domains.
Any tips for domain investors from the report?
Suggests maybe leaner portfolios, focus on versatile names, and sort of buy low, sell more, approach realistic pricing to keep inventory moving. Plus, staying tuned to trends and regional demands.
Okay, wow, we've covered a ton of ground there, from .com's resilience to AI's rise. Let's try and boil it down. Main takeaways. I think the big one is just rapid evolution. The whole industry is changing fast, driven by new domain options, technologies like AI and Web3, and definitely that growing focus on security. The traditional domains, still incredibly important, but the landscape is just so much more diverse now.
Diverse and dynamic. Lots of moving parts. Where do you see the biggest opportunities or areas to watch?
Well, that upcoming new gTLD round is huge. That could really reshape things again. How Web3 domains continue to grow and maybe integrate. That's fascinating. And AI, of course. How AI tools keep developing for search, management, security. That's going to keep changing the game.
Absolutely. Okay, final thought then for you listening. How does all this shifting ground affect your online plans, your digital strategy? That domain name seems simple, but choosing and managing it, it's getting more complex, more strategic all the time in this digital age. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.